What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It's Friday, May 15th, end of the week here. Thank goodness it's Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. And since it is Friday, of course, the lovely Lady Claire will be joining us in hour number 2. So the rules for the phone calls are, as always, a little different. We're going to do news in the first half of each hour, and then we'll take phone calls in the second half of each hour. So now that we've got that all sorted away, let's get into the news. Today is the anniversary of the Nakba, which means catastrophe. And it is the day when Israel basically stole Palestine from the Palestinians and launched this massive PR campaign saying, well, it's really ours. I mean, you know, God said this is all ours and you have to leave, and you don't want to go against the world of God, do you? The word of God, rather. So ever since then, Israel's been trying to justify what they did without much success. And, you know, Israel still refuses to come to terms with what they did back then. They're still in denial and trying to legitimize their persecution of the Palestinian people. But this day in 1948 marks the forced exile of over 750,000 Palestinians from their homes and lands, some of whom thought they might someday be able to return to them. That has not happened. In fact, Israel's membership in the United Nations was contingent upon a Palestinian right of return. Israel has never allowed that to happen. Okay, let's get to the modern day news here. This Michael Flynn case is just getting bizarre. It's a Twilight Zone episode at this point. Judge Emmett Sullivan has now appointed an anti-Trump lawyer to argue against dropping the case against Michael Flynn. Even though the Department of Justice has already dropped it, the judge has appointed this lawyer, John Gleason, to come on in and argue why the case should move forward. And I think this qualifies as judicial misconduct. So Gleason is a retired New York Federal District Court judge who currently works as a partner at the international law firm Debevoise and Plimpton. And so he's going to be brought in as a friend of the court to argue against dropping the case, even though the Department of Justice has said we're dropping it. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Okay, the judge's job in that courtroom, besides being fair and impartial, which seems to be an impossibility here, is to see if there is a case for a prosecution. Well, if the prosecutors have already said we quit, there's no case. You know, the judge is literally trying to end run around the Department of Justice and say, oh, yes, I think there's a case there. And apparently, Judge Sullivan has also directed General Flynn's former law team, the ones who convinced him to plead guilty to perjury, they're going to reappear in court. And so the judge is just loading the court up with all these friends of the court that are against Michael Flynn and against Donald Trump. And whatever the outcome of this is, it's going to be open for appeal. Now, Emmett Sullivan is signaling he may pursue his own perjury or contempt charges against former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn over his wanting to abandon and withdraw his earlier guilty plea. Now, that puts Michael Flynn in a no-win situation. He either goes along with that guilty plea and Sullivan will sentence him on that guilty plea, or he withdraws the guilty plea and Sullivan will sentence him for criminal contempt of court. This is a clear case of judicial misconduct, and I think the good judge ought to be de-judged or debarred, tarred and feathered. Anyway, Samantha Power is still out there insisting she has no recollection of making an unmasking request related to General Flynn, even though it's recorded that she did so no less than 7 times. And by the way, Fox News kind of chickened out on this because they were talking about all the people on that list who did unmasking requests, and they put the number of requests by each name, except for Samantha Powers, where they said, well, she made several requests. Now, hashtag subpoena Obama is trending nationwide, but unfortunately, Lindsey Graham has sort of chickened out on that, saying it would be bad for the country for Obama to have to testify under oath. It would certainly be bad for Obama, but how is it bad for the country for us to find out the truth of what happened? Maybe in Lindsey Graham's view, the truth is the bad part. We can't let the American people know the truth of what's going on here. It'll be our jobs. Lindsay, it very well might be. So Flynn's lawyer is excoriating Obama in an open letter and basically said there's no, he's responding to Obama's comment, the rule of law is at risk and that there's no precedent that anybody can find for someone who's been charged with perjury just getting off scot-free. Now, that's the kind of stuff where you begin to get worried that basic, not just institutional norms, but our basic understanding of the rule of law is at risk. When you start moving in those directions, it can accelerate pretty quickly, as we've seen other places. On Wednesday, Flynn's lawyer, Sidney Powell, punched back, correcting Obama's inaccurate diatribe. First of all, Michael Flynn was never charged with perjury. He also went after Eric Holder, Andrew McCabe, Loretta Lynch, and others. This is going to get ugly before it's over. And Rush Limbaugh was out there saying that he thinks Sullivan just wants to drag this out into a new presidential term where everybody is betting the farm they're going to have a Democratic president, which is what the mistake they made back in 2016, I might point out. And then they can jail Michael Flynn because they haven't been able to jail anybody else, except for Manafort. They wanted Trump. They couldn't get him. 3 years of investigations from every single angle, including aerial overhead and underneath looking up. They couldn't find a thing on him. So they're desperate to justify all of this by finding somebody, anybody they can throw in the hooskow. So Russia's out there saying that Sullivan wants to drag this out into a next presidential administration where they can have a Democratic president who won't pardon Michael Flynn, and they'll put him away for as long as they possibly can. There's only one wrinkle to that. Donald Trump can pardon Michael Flynn on his last day in office. Especially if he loses the election, he's going to do that. And there's nothing they can do about it. It's a presidential pardon. Meanwhile, Greg Gutfeld is out there saying something's got to be done about Adam Schiff. Okay, there's got to be some consequences for what he put this country through over the last 3 years. There's got to be consequences for his lying to you repeatedly, saying that he had evidence of collusion between Donald Trump and the Russians, and now we know there wasn't any. That's what the transcripts reveal. Everybody who testified in front of Adam Schiff said, we can't find anything. The only collusion was between the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Russians. And now it's come on out the Russians wanted her to win. John Solomon is out there saying everything about the Schiff show is falling apart. And he's absolutely right. It's crumbling. This isn't even going to play in Peoria. Now, getting on over to Joe Biden, he's done it again. Open mouth, insert foot. Apparently did this COVID-19 roundtable in which he made the statement that 85,000 jobs have been lost in the U.S. and millions of Americans have died. He got it backward, obviously. And it's another reminder that we're dealing with a presumptive Democratic presidential nominee who may be a few soft drinks short of a picnic. Anyway, so far this whole Obamagate thing is showing that Biden is inadequate to challenge Donald Trump. More and more people are saying something is going to happen. Either Cuomo's going to come on in to try and hijack the Democratic convention. Remember, if they fail to get a majority vote in that first ballot, the floor is opened up and anybody can be put forward as a candidate. And that's why I think Hillary Clinton is going to make her move. Going to be an interesting convention, virtual or otherwise here. So why did Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama seem so determined to impede and topple Donald Trump? Well, there's been a lot that's going on, behind the scenes, like the Uranium One deal, the Clinton Foundation. There's a lot of stuff that's going on there. And there was this little club that everybody was in on the inside where they kept each other's secrets and they made a lot of money and they exerted a lot of power and they killed a few people along the way. So U.S. Attorney John Durham is looking into the origins of the Trump-Russia probe. He's starting to take a look at the role played by Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation to try and fan up the Russiagate scandal. Now, back in November of 2017, there was an interview with the Italian newspaper La Repubblica, where Professor Mifsud admitted he was in the organization, a member of the European Council on Foreign Relations, and you know which is the only foundation I'm a member of, the Clinton Foundation. Now, Mifsud had originally said that he was the one who told Papadopoulos about the Clinton emails. Then he denied it. And apparently, Papadopoulos somehow knew the Russians had dirt on Hillary Clinton, easy enough to do for anybody who wants to take a look. And apparently, this information became the trigger for launching Crossfire Hurricane. They wanted to get Trump on the defensive. They wanted to get him out before he could use this information on Hillary Clinton and make it public. I wonder why Trump hasn't done so now that he secures the president of the United States of America. He's leaving it up to us here in the independent media. Now, I'd like to put in a word for Michaela Wilkes. She is mounting a primary challenge against House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer in Maryland's 5th District. Now, Hoyer is one of the most pro-Israel Democrats in the House, and he's represented the district for almost 40 years. Wilkes is running an unapologetically progressive campaign, and Palestinian rights are an important part of her platform. She was recently endorsed by the Jewish Voice for Peace. Hoyer represents the corporate wing of the Democratic Party and is holding us back from real change, said Jewish Voice for Peace Action Government Affairs Manager Beth Miller at the time. Wilkes is part of the rising progressive left and would truly represent her district. We're proud to endorse her. So it looks like Steny Hoyer may not have a lock on the job for much longer. The FBI is investigating congressional stock trades that happened following the announcement of the, or just ahead of the announcement of the coronavirus pandemic. And it's already resulted in one congressman stepping down from a chairmanship. And now they're asking Senator Dianne Feinstein for documents about her husband's stock trades. Anyway. Let's see. U.S. imperialism's decomposition accelerates. This is international news we're getting into now. Apparently, we've gone from covert action or overt action to outsourcing. And when this first happened down in Venezuela, when these mercenaries went on in, and they didn't even make it to the beach before they were caught. And I said, this is so badly bungled. You know, I have to think that the U.S. government had nothing to do with it. Well, I was wrong. Apparently, there was a contract, and apparently part of the contract was negotiated in a White House meeting involving representatives of Guaido and the president of the Silver Corps, so which is run by Jordan Gaudreau, who was leading this whole operation from behind, I might add. And their mission was to attack the presidential palace, to overthrow Maduro, and install a de facto Guaido-led government. So the Venezuelan vice president is out there saying, I've never seen a contract for toppling a government. And it was a rather odd thing to have, you know, this paper document listing out what was going to happen, what weapons were going to be used, and how much money was going to be paid and how many people were going to be involved, which turns out, according to Silver Corps, about 300 people. They even had in the contract who was a legitimate target and who wasn't. So apparently there has surfaced within the British Embassy in Caracas a special unit devoted to the reconstruction of Venezuela. Well, the Venezuelan government is now saying, we demand respect and we want an explanation of why you have a planning office on reconstructing Venezuela. I mean, the reason is going to be very obvious. The invasion is on. And apparently somebody in the U.S. government actually thought this harebrained scheme of kidnapping Maduro and throwing him on a plane back to the United States was actually going to work. I mean, it was insane. I mean, when they did the same thing to Manuel Noriega, they used to use the regular military. And they went on in there in force. They grabbed Noriega. They threw him on a plane. He spent the rest of his life making license plates in Florida. All right. Let's talk about the coronavirus now because everybody else is here. Las Vegas is getting ready to reopen in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic. They've been shut down long enough. They want to reopen. The lights are coming back on. The fountains are going, and the gambling and prostitution and everything else that made that city great, cranking back up again. All righty. Apparently, back in 2012, there was a comic book paid for by the European Union that predicted almost exactly what's unfolded with COVID-19, where there's a pandemic and globalists are portrayed as the saviors of all mankind. The comic book is titled Infected. It was a production of the European Commission's International Cooperation and Development Arm. It was not intended for widespread public consumption, but to be distributed inside EU institutions. Only a few hundred copies were printed. That's kind of a little bit bizarre here. Over at Google, they have censored, suppressed Dr. Judy Mikovits' Plandemic. And as a result, going along with the Banned in Boston effect, it's made her book sort of #1 in the bestseller charts. So it backfired horribly. Yeah, every time Google, or for that matter, Facebook or Twitter or YouTube censors something, everybody wants to know what was so dangerous, what was in there they didn't want us to see. I want to see it now. So it's not working. It really is not working. Apparently, Bill Gates' funded COVID-19 tracking program has now been halted over FDA requirements. They're calling it SCAN, which is supported and partially funded by Bill Gates, was suspended after Gates wrote in a Tuesday post on his personal blog that it has the potential to become an important tool for health officials seeking insights about the spread and behavior of the virus. The goal of SCAN is to track the spread of the novel coronavirus in the Seattle area by sending self-swab tests to local residents. China may have 640,000 coronavirus cases instead of 84,000, leaked data from the country's military-run university suggests. And apparently, we are already establishing China was being less than forthcoming about what was going on with this virus, where it came from, how it came to be, and so forth. And so this data leak from a university suggests that China has hundreds of thousands more cases than publicly acknowledged. Psychosis may be another symptom of COVID-19. Studies are suggesting some people with the COVID-19 will suffer hallucinations. They can hear voices, see visual effects. Not my kind of visual effects, medical visual effects. People have been talking about this Kawasaki-like disease, and it's got nothing to do with the motorcycles, but apparently they're confirming it is caused by the COVID-19 virus, and it can only be diagnosed by antibody tests. A study of 8 children admitted to a Birmingham hospital with the condition reveals they were infected with the SARS-CoV-2 virus several weeks before they showed any symptoms, during which time I presume they might be contagious. Now, cats can catch COVID-19 from other cats. They've already discovered that. The big question is, can cats reinfect humans? Well, generally, with naturally occurring pathogens that jump species, they can always be made to reinfect the original species. So the preliminary answer, and again, I'm not a doctor, but the preliminary answer would be yes. This has led to a problem because people are starting literally to abandon their pets, to kick them out of the house and abandon them on the street because they're afraid of getting COVID-19 from them. And that's a very cruel thing to do here. Researchers at the University of Wisconsin-Madison and the University of Tokyo noted that none of the cats in their study was visibly ailing, but they shed the virus from their nasal passages for about 6 days. All right, this has got a lot of people kind of scratching their head and saying, you know, what's going on? Trump has confirmed he's rushing to get a vaccine done. He's calling it Operation Warp Drive. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be back with Operation Warp Drive after these few words. Welcome back to our show. Here we're talking about the vaccine plans and Operation Warp Drive to get a vaccine ready as quickly as possible. We know how rush jobs can often work up. But apparently Trump is confirming plans to distribute the vaccine by the military. Okay? Nothing in the mail, nothing on UPS, nothing on FedEx, nothing on Mas Rapido or anything else like that. They're literally going to have the military come to your door and make sure that you have your vaccine. Now, I find this very frightening, and I don't want the vaccine, at least not right up at front until we see what damage it does, because I'm old enough to remember the mandatory swine flu vaccination back in 1976 that killed 50 times as many people as the flu did. And they had to cancel the whole program because it was killing people. That could easily happen again with all this rushing around here, and the vaccine companies indemnified against civil litigation. Then there was that other vaccine, mandatory vaccine, that was giving people Guillain-Barré syndrome. I think the vaccine should be voluntary, and I might get it, but long after everybody else has had it, and we can see if there's adverse reactions. This idea that the military is going to come to your door with the vaccine, that is more than just a little bit scary. Alrighty, down in Cuba, they make interferon. Cuba has a wonderful medical establishment. It's on a par with that here in the United States of America, despite the poverty brought about by all these years of embargo. And they have this Cuban interferon, which is proven to be effective against COVID-19. Details of the effectiveness of the recombinant human interferon alpha-2b were presented by Dr. Eulogio Pimentel Vasquez, director of the Center for Genetic Engineering Biotechnology, affiliated with the BioCuba Pharma Enterprise Group, where the medication was first produced back in the 1980s. So they're having a little bit of luck with that one. Okay, the House Democrats have unveiled a new $3 trillion coronavirus relief bill. They're already meeting resistance from the Republicans, first of all, because the Republicans are wondering, where are we going to get that $3 trillion? They don't have the money. It's going to have to be borrowed at interest, I might add. And Nancy Pelosi has turned this new relief bill into yet another liberal wish list. I mean, they've got money there for Planned Parenthood. They want to give $1,200 each to illegal immigrants. They want amnesty for illegal immigrants. They want a lot of money for arts. They want a lot of money for various other progressive programs, and whatever's left over will be distributed to the American people. Now, I don't have a problem with money for the arts. I really don't. I do have a problem with money for Planned Parenthood and for illegal immigrants, and I do have a problem with amnesty for illegal immigrants. So I don't think they're going to get this one through. It'll die in the House of Representatives, which, by the way, I might add, under the Constitution, all revenue measures are supposed to originate in the House of Representatives, not the Senate. The Senate can either agree or disagree, but revenue measures originate in the House of Representatives. Okay, another aspect that is being snuck into the coronavirus bill is language pardon me, that would create a loophole in states' voter ID requirements, allowing people to cast ballots without having to prove who they are. Can you say illegal immigrants voting the straight Democratic ticket? I knew you could. And here's another one of these stories that has my head scratching. It's not making sense. This is coming from cuzblue.com. And they're talking about how pig farmers here in rural America are culling, meaning killing, thousands of animals, even as we're supposed to have a meat shortage. Now, we know that pork exports to China are up. There are shortages in our supermarkets. Something doesn't make sense here, okay? Why are we not able to get these pigs to market? There's something going on here. Are they trying to create an artificial shortage to drive? Wouldn't be the first time that's happened. So basically what they're saying is the closure of the meat packing plants is the problem. Have you noticed that all these meat packing plants seem to be coming down with coronavirus, but none of the big box stores are? There's something weird about that as well. All right. Over in Wisconsin, as we reported yesterday, the state Supreme Court struck down the stay-at-home order. As of today, the Wisconsin bars are packed with patrons. They're out there having a really, really good time. Meanwhile, Israel is wrecking efforts to halt the spread of COVID-19 in the West Bank city of Bethlehem. And basically, the Palestinian Authority's jurisdiction only covers 18% of the West Bank, known as Area A, which includes Ramallah, Bethlehem, Jenin, and Nablus. And although the PA is theoretically responsible for security in these cities, Israel has often subjected them to military raids with the acquiescence of the world's most powerful governments and institutions. And Israel has started confiscating COVID-19 supplies away from the Palestinian clinics. All right, we're going to take another break for commercial, and we'll be right back after these rules. And welcome back to our show here. We're going to take some phone calls, starting with Mark in North Carolina. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the show. Thanks for waiting patiently, and what's on your mind? Mark dropped, so let's go to Jim in Montana. Hello, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
They have a cure, Mike. They just came out today, California. They're pretty much guaranteeing it. They came out with an antibody that is extremely successful against the coronavirus. I guess, what did it say? It coats your cells, or it coats the coronavirus or something, and then it flushes out of your system in like 4 days. They said, what did they say? It was like 100% effective. Yeah, Google that up. Yep. They just today they came out with it. It was pretty funny because I was just starting a petition, writing it up last night, and I was about to start calling all kinds of senators and stuff, and tell them like, hey, I have a petition going, and I've already got about 20 people that were going to sign up on why they're not using colloidal silver, and specifically colloidal silver in diffusers and humidifiers to experiment treating with the COVID. Like they won't even freaking go near colloidal silver, and they were on the attack on colloidal silver hard this last week.
Well, they're not thinking about what's best for the patients. They're thinking about what's going to make the most money. In fact, Fox News just had a story on here where the acting Homeland Security director is claiming Iran and China are targeting U.S. COVID-19 vaccine research. Well, if this really is a global health crisis, I would say that share and share alike ought to be the guidance here. But obviously, the United States wants to come up with a cure or a vaccine and make the money off of it, and the rest of the world be gosh darned.
Yes, sir. You know, I think they had the cure the whole time. I think they're just breaking it out because they realize that this is going to start backfiring on them if they continue with this anymore. I was looking at the numbers as well. Jersey and Dustin, he said last week or something like, 56 deaths in Jersey today, guys. 56 deaths, you know. Dude, you average 250 deaths in Jersey a day, man, and it's all from heart attacks and cancer. What's going on down in Jersey where there's a high rate of heart attacks and cancer? Like 80% of the deaths that happen daily there are from heart attacks and cancer. So that's a pretty toxic place. It is like Italy when they were having the most issues with corona. Well, Italy's got some of the worst air quality. There's a province in Italy that has like I don't know, it's up there in the top 3 years or something like that of the worst air quality in the world, and some of the worst respiratory illnesses. People with a population with the most respiratory illnesses, per quota or whatever. That's nothing new. That was nothing new to Italy anyway. Probably Corona did come through there, made things a little worse. Those people were all suffering from bad respiratory illnesses anyway from toxic air. But it's so exaggerated. These numbers are so exaggerated. When in March and when the Corona really started hitting New Jersey, it was like at the end of March. For the month of March, it was like 80 deaths or 90 deaths.
Yes.
And it went from 80, 90 deaths in March, and then to April, I don't know, a couple thousand, 3,000, 4,000. That how does that does not make any sense. How do you have that huge of a jump? There was a gentleman, I think it was Jersey as well. There was a gentleman that went to maybe it wasn't Jersey, but there was a gentleman that went to the conservative conference, and Trump was there, Mike Pence was there, and Pence and Trump had said they were going to go quarantine after the conference or whatever. But this one guy went to this conference and had got the corona. Okay.
Yes.
Now, how does one individual in that big conference with all those people, how does only one walk out of there with corona? I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's I don't know. It doesn't make sense. How is he walking and mingling through a room and whatever, and groups of people and whatever, and no one else is affected? But then you look at the jump that Jersey had from March to April, from like 80 deaths to thousands. You know, how does that make sense? How can one guy walk through the conservative conference, blah, 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 and nobody gets infected?
He may not have been contagious at that stage of the disease.
What's that?
He may not have been contagious at that stage of the process here. I mean, when you get infected, you know, there's a period of time where the virus is in your body starting to reproduce, but you're not yet really contagious to those around you. Then as it progresses, you become more contagious to those around you. So I would speculate that this individual who got the coronavirus, you know, they're assuming that he got it at this conservative conference. He may have picked it up on his way out the door.
If he picked it up, sure, Mike. But if he picked it up on the way out the door, how could he have been the only one? Like maybe it wasn't even tied in with the conf. I don't know.
Well, how long ago was the conference?
Shoot, I can't remember. It was.
Okay.
I think it was back when the corona thing was first starting, like in March or whatever. It was a conservative conference or whatever, and Pence and Trump and everybody was there. But,
all right. Well, listen.
Yeah.
Thank you for the information. We're going to let you go. The phone lines are starting to fill up here. We're going to go to Mark in North Carolina, who called back. Mark, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, well, one thing about General Flynn. Look, if Trump has any guts, if he has a pair, he will immediately pardon Flynn and at the same time appoint him as National Security Advisor again to really stick it to the Democratic fools. And he should also investigate this judge, start an investigation of this judge to see about getting him out of there. The other thing about with the coronavirus stuff you just brought out about, first of all, like paranoid, like if you're paranoid or something makes you paranoid. This is typical of what they've tried to do in saying that anybody who doesn't believe the garbage that the establishment says has some kind of a mental disorder, and this adds to that. And as far as the pets go, these vermin are not even satisfied to attack human beings, but they want to attack our pets. Because again, if you look at the global warming rules, they say that pets contribute to global warming because they breathe out carbon dioxide, as all life forms do, as far as I know.
Yes.
There's an agenda there. Like, wake up, people! Wake up! Understand who this enemy is. This enemy is evil. I'm beginning to wonder whether it even is a coronavirus, where they're not taking the flu, some form of the flu, and just saying it's a coronavirus, and coming up with or combining the two together, all the flu, because I haven't even heard flu statistics from this year, and trying to scare you people to death. All they're trying to do. Okay? Take care of yourself. You shouldn't have to worry about flu, coronavirus, or anything else. Stop with these stupid masks. Crying out loud, folks. You're being played. I mean, we're being played. I believed this crap in the beginning, because I'm kind of a hypochondriac. But as I started looking into it more and more, I realized it was just that crap. I don't know what went on in China. I think China may be playing a game, too, in its population. All right? Well, that's about all I have to say, Mike. But wake up, folks, please. Thank you.
All right, thanks an awful lot. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Getting on back to Israel and Palestine, military analyst for Israel's Yedioth Ahronoth newspaper, Alex Fishman, said that Prime Minister Netanyahu is planning to buy the Palestinian silence over the annexation of the West Bank with cash. According to Fishman, as Israeli occupation forces arrest Palestinians during overnight raids in an effort to stop mass protests as a result of the plan, the government is offering to revive and nourish the Palestinian economy with handouts to placate the Palestinians. Personally, I don't think it's going to work, but it's nice that they're getting some money anyway here. Meanwhile, church leaders are out there warning against the Israeli plans to annex the West Bank. The Anglican Archbishop in Jerusalem, Suhail Dawani, is one of 13 senior church leaders to put their names on the statement calling on Israel not to unilaterally annex land in the occupied West Bank. So this is something that is definitely not getting a huge amount of support other than from the United States here. All righty. So we're in the middle of a world health crisis, we are being told. So what does the U.S. government does? Well, it ramps up confrontation with Iran and with China. It deploys nuclear bombers against Russia, North Korea, and the rest. And the Pentagon is just marching off to war enthusiastically. So there are countless thousands suffering the effects of COVID-19, including hundreds of members of the U.S. Armed Services, while the world's desperates are relishing their freedom to persecute minorities. The propaganda campaign is intriguing, and although amateur and absurd in content and dissemination, the message is unfortunately being believed by the millions at whom it's directed. Okay, we're going to take another phone call. Dustin in New Jersey. Hello, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, I called you a warp speed with my warp drive. Mike, that caller before Mark from North Carolina.
Yes.
Italy has like a large older population.
Yes.
I mean, and you got to understand, you know, I'm not a doctor and a scientist, but the way viruses work is, you know, well, the way it spreads is by if you have it with this virus, and I don't know what the flu is. The flu, is it times 3? So
you
3 times 3 is 9. 9 times, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Then you get the super spreader. I mean, that's how it spreads so quick, especially in New Jersey, where I live. It's like I mean, it's not a sardine can. It's close, though. I mean, it's a small state with a large population. I mean, I don't live in the city, you know, but like, but it's just, you know, that everybody's going to get this. That's why I keep explaining to people when they call me, like, if you're in New York, it's a large population. So they're going to, but Mike, I look, you know, Mike, did you see on the daily, I go on the Daily Mail, and I try to use my brain with that site because Daily Mail is sometimes fluky. You know, did you see all those people waiting for Trump to drive past or something?
Yes.
Oh, like, no, hardly anybody had masks on. Now, I mean, a lot of young people live in the cities. A lot of older people who live in the rural areas. Like, I looked at the number. So, I mean, you know, all those people in Wisconsin are all happy to go into the bars. I mean, I kind of feel sorry for them what's going to happen because, you know, they're going to bring it home and it's going to spread there. And it's not, like I said, it's not a sardine can, but it's still going to spread through their community, you know, and yes. I mean, and you know what's crazy? Like, I look at the communities, they don't have, like, in terms of hospital care, I think they'd get overwhelmed more than we would, right? Like, on the cities, because they're not really set up for, like, a large amount of people coming into those smaller, you know, hospitals or doctors' offices and
well,
stuff.
That's why they wanted to flatten the curve, was to prevent the system from being overwhelmed. They're not saying that they're going to actually prevent or reduce the number of cases. They just want to spread them out to make it more manageable.
Which, you know, do you think there's going to be like a second wave worse because of mutations and just the way like I said, I don't have a problem wearing a mask. I went out today, and I have it on my neck. I flip it back. I don't keep it hanging on my car. rear view mirror. That's stupid. I just flip it over and I go in the store, I come out, I take it off. That's it. It's quick and easy. You know, but I just see people, well, not here because you got to wear a mask when you go in the store. But I just see people who just don't wear it, and it's like, it's this lack, that, you know, that lack of, how do you say, the lackadaisic attitude, you know, the arrogance and, yeah, it's an arrogance and ignorance attitude that can actually bring out the second wave, and it could be worse or mutate. You know, that's why I always say take precautions or be street smart and safe. No, I mean, and then one last thing before I get off the phone is, did you hear that story about the private plane company that Trump's, one of the donors owned? He got like a bailout or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you know, Mike, it doesn't matter. I said it before. Trump, Bush, Clinton, Obama, what's the difference? It's the cronyism, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, Mike Pompeo, this, that, blah, blah, blah. What's changed, people? You know, Mike, and I got to disagree with some of your callers. I mean, there's no indictments coming against Obama. They're not going to. You saw Lindsey Graham. You said that. Like, yes. He's part of the establishment, Mike. I mean, he is part of that group.
He just wilted. You know, he wilted. Mike, and his excuse is just lame. It's bad for the country. No, finding out the truth is never bad for the country. Just bad for the government.
It is, but that's bull because he's part of the government establishment, the deep state.
Yes.
That's why they all, Mike, like I said, there's two deep states on the left and on the right. They come into the center when it comes to Syria, right? Russia, China, evil China. Mm-hmm. Hey, when's the last time you saw anything coming out about China, that German article, remember, from the German intelligence agency? That disappeared. Remember, that's the same German intelligence agency that protected Angela Merkel's phone, right, from being spied on by Obama?
Yes.
So all this is nonsense. And you saw that Trump comes out against Huawei, right? Like, you saw that article?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so this is all, Mike, it's all geopolitical games. Using the virus as basically as a weapon, you know, and but that's all I got to say, Mike. Have a good night, and hope Claire and you stay safe. Still wear your mask. I don't care what anybody calls in and says, you know, be street smart. Have a good night.
All right, thanks an awful lot here. We're coming up on another commercial break. We got 2 callers waiting on the line. I'm going to try and squeeze in before the top of the hour because that's when Lady Claire joins us, and we're going to shut the phone lines again for the first half of the next hour. So stay tuned, and we'll be back after these words from our sponsors. Welcome back to our show. We're going to try and cram in 2 phone calls before the top of the hour. Al in Canada, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Doing fine.
Good. When Dustin was talking to you, something occurred to me. It takes a lot of flack on your show, you know, and it reminded me of years ago with John in Barbados.
Yes.
I would love to have known what he thought of all this, but I've read some of the comments and too, on, you know, like some of the comments that are on your show as well, on the YouTube channel, and it's just disgraceful what people say about this fella. Anyway, you know, I mean, I don't think a mask is going to help anybody. As a matter of fact, I would suggest people want to get this just to build some immunity towards it. It'd be better than a vaccination. And like Dustin said himself, it mutates. Aren't they saying this mutates? How do you vaccinate someone against something that mutates? It's like trying to vaccinate someone against the cold or the flu. They don't work.
And look how badly they've botched that up year after year.
Yeah, and you know, year after year, the governments, at least up in Canada, they pay for this nonsense, and every year they say, "Oh, well, you know, it only had what do they call it, efficacy rate or something like that, like a 40%." And I think that number is total bullshit, anyways.
Efficacy.
Yeah, you know, yeah. So why wouldn't you want to get it? And then, you know, now they're saying that you can get it through the eyes, which, you know, it only makes sense. I mean, come on, people, think about this. You can get it a lot of different ways. You don't have to be near anybody that's coughing or hacking up a storm. It's like any virus. It's on the surfaces you touch. It's everywhere. People that are born in a bubble live in a bubble. You know, it's time to like stop this nonsense. Stop being so afraid of something that might not even do anything to anybody. A lot of people don't even show symptoms. They're what do they call that? Asymptomatic.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't, like you said, Mike. You don't want to get a shot in the arm for this stupid thing. I don't either, because I've seen what it's done. I've seen what it's done to me. I've seen what it's done to my brother. These shots that are supposed to help people. No, thanks. I'd rather just get it over with. You know, if I die, oh well. You know, I'm in my 50s. I had a good run. What do you think, Mike?
Well, I'm not ready to shuffle off this mortal coil anytime soon, but yeah, I actually, if it turned out I've already had it and developed antibodies to it, I'd be absolutely delighted.
Yeah, so would I. I think that's the only way to go. And if there's a second wave, good. If there's a third wave, even better. Because I think after this, the wave, even if there are, you know, such things as this wave, they're going to be smaller and smaller until eventually, you know, if at the end of the year or even by the middle of next year, if they come up with a vaccine, who's going to need it? All the people that are terrified to stick their nose out their own door for fear that something evil might happen, when in actual fact, they're healthy individuals. They're just paranoid. They're like hypochondriacs. They're afraid of everything.
Okay, Al, we got to let you go. We got to let you go. And we're going to take this one last call right after the top of the hour. Then the phone lines are going to be closed until the bottom of the hour to give time to the lovely Lady Claire with her unique perspective on the world. We'll be right back. And welcome back to our show, hour number 2. Our last caller dropped off the line, so we're going to close the phone lines until the bottom of the hour, and we'll be taking phone calls at that point here. So, Claire, what's the first story you've got?
Well, the first story I've got is more than a little concerning, I think, to anyone who does like the concept of their civil liberties. Apparently, big tech is turning hospitals now into real-time surveillance centers. And let me share with you and our listeners what's happened. Big tech is using the pandemic as an excuse to turn hospitals into mirror images of law enforcement's real-time crime centers. Now, who did this? Google. Wasn't their motto, "Don't be evil," at one point?
Yeah, but they changed it since then.
Yeah.
I think it's "Be Evil" is the new motto.
I was kind of wondering about that. And what they did was they donated 10,000 Nest cameras to hospitals. And apparently this does allow nurses and doctors to check in on patients, supplementing in-person checks. This means that there's going to be a reduction of physical contact and less need for what is now being described in an acronym as PPE, or personal protection equipment, which has become a very scarce resource. But what makes this such a big deal, folks, is how big tech companies are using the pandemic to make them appear as though they were magnanimous. Google, magnanimous my astrolabe. And I'm looking at all the deplatforming and demonetizing of sites with which Google has disagreed, or where the viewpoint is not official gospel. Folks, this is an attempt at what I would call industrial strength misdirection, which will not, thank you very much, Google and your brothers and sisters who have become the fifth arm of the U.S. government, surveillance, not working at all. I still see what you have done on the deplatforming. And my attitude toward deplatforming is don't deplatform the person, argue with them logically.
Yeah, but see, a lot of the people being deplatformed, the logic is against Google and the social media.
Yeah.
Because they're pushing the official story, which in a lot of cases, I mean, you know, the Kennedy assassination, 9/11, TWA 800, we've been lied to so many times, people just aren't going to listen to the government anyway. Yeah. And, you know, anytime there's an actual open debate, the presumption is going to be that the person who is standing opposite the government in the argument is going to be the one telling the truth. And so that's why they're resorting to these heavy-handed tactics. But as we mentioned with Dr. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting her name, the one who wrote the book Plandemic.
Yes.
Yes,
I know.
It backfired. Her books are now at the top of the book selling lists. The banned in Boston effect.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as we talk about surveillance, apparently employers are now keeping a very watchful eye, Mike, on remote workers. And this comes out of Zero Hedge, which is a resource I recommend to you. I don't know that they're always 100% right, but they have an annoying tendency to be right.
Yes.
And employers are now using very sophisticated forms of software to remotely monitor their employees' productivity. And apparently companies like ActiveTrack, Terramind, Hubstaff, and Time Doctor are providing people in power with a dashboard which provides data on individual workers, including their screen time, mouse activity, desk screenshots, and even their physical locations via GPS, according to the CBC. And apparently, ActiveTrack Dashboard, the Texas company, has seen a spike in inquiries, and apparently, Miami-based Terramind said that global customer interest is 300% above normal. Now, Hubstaff co-founder Dave Nevgot said that the Indianapolis-based company's website has seen a massive jump in traffic. Now, I worked remotely before it was cool, all right, or before it was necessary, let's say. And I have never had any request from any of my clients for any of this. I do the work, I produce the results, and that's basically what they're asking me for, you know?
Yes.
And this to me sounds like very Orwellian overkill. Your thoughts?
It's overkill, but on the other hand, you have all these mid-level managers who are paid to supervise workers and make sure they're working, but they can't do that when it's happening from home. And there probably are going to be some people who are saying, I'm working remotely from home, and they're not really. And so I think there's a certain justification for upper management to want to make sure that the work is getting done.
Yeah.
I think there's, for people who are working remotely at home or are doing the work, I imagine this is slightly annoying, because it's sending a message, we don't really trust you to be doing what you're supposed to be doing. But I think that it is a little creepy.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the technology has made it possible to do this.
Then I'd like to go over to another false story by the New York Slimes, in which it falsely blames Russia for a cyber attack on Angela Merkel of Germany that was actually committed by a British hacker. Now, this comes from Moon of Alabama, usually a pretty trustworthy resource as well. Now, apparently, Times is continuing its anti-Russia campaign with a report about an old cyber attack on German parliament, which targeted the parliament office of Chancellor Angela Merkel. Russia has outraged her, but she is struggling to respond. And the article went on, patience with President Vladimir Putin is running thin in Berlin, but Germany needs Russia's help on several geopolitical fronts from Syria to Ukraine. New York Times Berlin correspondent Katrin Venhold writes, Chancellor Angela Merkel used strong words on Wednesday to condemn an outrageous attack, cyber attack by Russia's foreign intelligence, allegedly, on the German parliament. Her personal email also included, and she made the observation Russia is pursuing a strategy of hybrid warfare. But asked how Berlin intends to deal with recent revelations implicating the Russians, Ms. Merkel was a little bit less forthcoming. We always reserve the right to take measures, she said in Parliament, then immediately added, nevertheless, I will continue to strive for a good relationship with Russia because I believe there is every reason to always consider these diplomatic efforts. Well, the attack happened in 2015. Hello.
Yes.
The attribution to Russia is just reeks of shoddiness. And this is really funny because we recently learned that the company which investigated the alleged DNC intrusion, CrowdStrike, had found no evidence, as in zero, that a Russian hacker group had targeted the DNC, or that DNC emails were exfiltrated over the internet. Wow, Mike. When the New York Times is told to lie to further a government agenda, as in Russia bad, do they go the extra distance to comply?
Well, my comment to the New York Times is, "Das vui dumech."
Can you translate that politely into English?
You're a dumbass.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. And apparently, Los Angeles Mayor Garcetti is backpedaling furiously after there has been a very intense reaction, shall we say, from Angelenos.
I would say so. I mean, August?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hello.
I mean, that was, yeah.
All right. Now, this comes again from Zero Hedge, a pretty respectfully responsible blog. The mayor of LA said on Tuesday that he was quickly backpedaling from his top health director's extension of the stay-at-home order that would now last through July, after residents were furious about further quarantines. And this comes from Reuters. Now, Barbara Ferrer, the LA County health director, said the new public health order is now called Safer at Home and would go into effect this Friday and last for 3 months, even as Governor Gavin Newsom said restaurants and other businesses could reopen. And so the statement was made of, while the Safer at Home orders will remain in place over the next few months, restrictions will be gradually relaxed under our 5-stage roadmap to recovery. I love that.
Yes.
How alliterative could one get? While making sure we are keeping our communities as safe as possible during this pandemic, Ferrer said in a statement released on Tuesday. And then, and this was the icing, this was the gobsmack moment. This was the palm to forehead at velocity moment. We are being guided by science and data that will safely move us forward along the road to recovery in a measured way, one that allows us to ensure that effective distancing and infection control measures are in place. Okay, Ferrer. When you got the original code on which your models were derived from the Imperial College in London in the UK, the code was crud. Come on.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Oh, please don't even begin to tell Californians and Angelenos
And then, of course, the media sees the worst case scenario because it
Yeah.
was sensational.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody was basing their reactions on.
Yeah. And you're talking about science when we know that Cuba, against which the U.S. still holds an industrial strength grudge, is having a spectacularly positive time against the virus with interferon. Folks, this is working. They're doing the double-blind studies. So please, Mrs. Ferrer, don't talk to Californians about science and data.
Interferon. The patent's already there and it's owned by somebody else. We need something that will make money for the United States of America. And we don't care how many people have to die before we get it.
Yeah. And I mean, this to me makes absolutely zero sense, Mike, from a medical standpoint, from a data standpoint. And what is driving these decisions, I think, is not data and not science, but a very strong desire to see just how much tyranny can be inflicted against thinking Californians before there is a blowback of some degree. By the way, as a Christian pacifist activist, I never, ever advocate violence, but I can see under certain situations how that might come about.
Yes, unfortunately, these are the times we live in.
Yeah. And let's go back to Obamagate. Oh, this is just getting so rich. I can't believe it. John Brennan apparently concealed high-quality intelligence that Russia wanted Hillary Clinton to win, not Donald Trump. And this comes out of, again, Zero Hedge. Apparently, former CIA Director John Brennan suppressed intelligence in which it was indicated that Russia wanted Hillary Clinton to win because she was a known commodity versus the unpredictable Donald Trump, according to Fox News' Ed Henry. And apparently, during a Tuesday night discussion with Tucker Carlson, Henry made the observation that Brennan had also had intelligence saying, actually, that they wanted Hillary to win. She had been Secretary of State, and Vladimir Putin's team thought she was a little more malleable than Trump might have been. and the Trump was unpredictable. Now, I have to wonder if perhaps Russian President Putin had fond memories of the time Bill Clinton hung out at his private homestead during the trip where Clinton collected a $500,000, let me run that number by you again, a $500,000 payday for a speech at a Moscow bank right before the Uranium One deal was approved.
Oh, and by the way, we're having a sale right now. I'll do speeches for only $100,000.
Okay, all right, very good.
Such a deal.
Yes, Memorial Day sale. Everyone note that, please. And as Breitbart's Joel Pollack notes, Henry's claim backs up a similar allegation by former National Security Council Chief of Staff Fred Fleitz, who said on 22 April that the House Intelligence Committee staff told him that after an exhaustive investigation reviewing intelligence and interviewing intelligence officers, they found that Brennan had done that suppression of high-quality intelligence that Putin actually wanted Clinton over
Trump in the 2016 election.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton more malleable. They should have talked to Bill Clinton about that first.
Probably that might have been an interesting discussion for Putin
that
and
might
Clinton
have been
to have had.
A misappraisal of the situation there.
Yes, definitely. Oh, and Facebook, another one of our wonderful suppression and surveillance teams, is now setting up a lobbying group to argue that big tech is essential to free speech.
Oh, you're kidding me.
No, I swear to heaven, I am not. This comes to us from Summit News. And apparently what they're doing is they're setting up an advocacy group in D.C. with the sole aim of preventing the U.S. government from regulating the company. Now, this is what the lobbying group is going to claim, and that is that big tech is vomit bags at the ready, essential to the future of free speech.
Boy, the hypocrisy, you could slice
Lord.
it with a knife.
Oh, and it stinks. It smells. It's worse than cow flops.
I even have the knife here.
We get a lot of cow flops out here, folks. This is rural Indiana. And apparently this group, as characterized by a Washington Post report, details that they're going to be called American Edge, and Facebook is committed to spending millions in advertising and political greasing to prevent this regulation. And the setup is essentially to allow it to navigate a thicket of tax laws in such a way that it can raise money and blitz the airwave with ads without the obligation of disclosing all of its donors. How sweet. Who else gets that? I mean, come on.
They may, if they succeed, if they're able to blitz, with ads and not reveal all their donors, then I think they just crossed the line into being a publishing concern, in which case the First Amendment would apply.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, so what looks like it could be bad could possibly be positive.
They may be hoisting with their own petard. Of course, in this corrupt government, we don't know. Obviously, all of these social media companies are hand in glove with the U.S. government to try and keep Americans from thinking those double plus on good thoughts.
Yeah. No one can ever blame Facebook for not looking out for itself in every possible way, including doing this. Yeah. Oh, a little article from Michigan. Apparently, armed militia helped reopen a Michigan barbershop. Apparently, they have pledged their support to an Owasso, Michigan barbershop that opened up last week in defiance of Governor Whitmer's stay-at-home order. A Facebook Live video surfaced on Saturday morning, May 9th, broadcast by Mid-Michigan Now, showing a dozen people standing in front of the barbershop. Some were actually waiting for haircuts, and while others were armed with weapons, guarded the perimeter of the building. Now, Michigan State Police issued several citations on Friday from the Michigan Attorney General's office, Dana Nessel's office, demanding that Karl Manke 77 shutter all the operations of Karl Manke's Barber and Beauty Shop, located on 421 West Main Street. Now, in response to the tensions between Manke and the state, the Michigan militia has pledged full support in making sure that the state government does not shut down the shop and will defend Mankey from being hauled off in handcuffs. Now, as of May 8th, 6 troopers came in to enforce the governor's order. And so they said, we're here to make sure he doesn't get arrested. Now, this is an Owasso resident, Dan Brewer, and this is what he told to NBC 25 News. And he further stated, we're willing to stand in front of that door and block the entrance so that the police will have no entry there today. I would like to politely suggest that Michigan's Governor Whitmer has found the point past which she can no longer push her brother and sister Michiganders, and since this is most probably her last term as a public servant to the state, to devote some very thorough thinking time to what she might want to do when she loses the next gubernatorial election.
I don't know, maybe she could open a bondage parlor or something. Okay, we got to take a break for commercials here, and we'll be back with more news from the Lady Claire after these few words. Welcome back to our show here, and Claire, what is your next story?
Well, what I have to wonder about is why the mainstream media seems so desperate to keep the COVID-19 lockdowns going. And the answer is really pretty darn simple. It's to keep wounding Trump geopolitically just as much as they can before the November election. And hey, according to a newly released study, if 80% of all Americans simply wore masks when they go outside, we wouldn't be looking at this, at this mess.
Well, it all depends on what the mask is made out of.
Yes.
I mean, the N95s are fine enough to stop the water droplets that contain the virus.
Yeah.
But a lot of these homemade masks made out of cloth and everything, no, they're worse than useless.
Wow. Then why are people being told to use them?
Because that's the official government advice, and it doesn't have to make sense. It just has to be official.
Okay. All righty. I'd like to go over now to the Federal Bureau of Incompetence, which has done it again. Oops, they did it again.
Deliberately, probably.
Yeah, they revealed the name of the Saudi embassy official thought to have supported the 9/11 hijackers. Now, this comes to us from Boing Boing. In a court filing, the FBI revealed the name of an official at the Saudi embassy long suspected to have directed support to 2 9/11 hijackers. Now, the release of the official's name was a mistake, according to Michael Isikoff, a flabbergasting slip-up that belies nearly 2 decades of efforts by the U.S. administrations to conceal the extent of Saudi involvement in America's worst terror attack. And the statement was made by Brett Eagleson, a spokesman for the 9/11 families, that this shows that there is a complete government cover-up of the Saudi level of involvement.
You know what he's saying here? We can't find any evidence the Saudis had anything to do with this, therefore there must be a cover-up. That's the logic here. And they're suing the Saudis because the Saudis have money, not as much as they used to before the oil price wars and everything. But can you see the pattern here? 9/11 happens. Oh, it was Afghanistan. We go in, we bomb the crap out of Afghanistan. We were sorry, Afghanistan, we messed up your country. It was really the Iraqis who did it. So we go in and we bomb Iraq and we wreck the place. Oh, our bad Iraq, we sorry we did that. You weren't involved. It was Saudi Arabia. So my advice to Saudi Arabia is you better make sure your bomb shelters are in good working order.
You think? Really? Whoa.
9/11 has become the, we are about to go to war sign waved by the government.
Okay.
And
Afghanistan,
Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Liechtenstein, Monaco, Manhattan, Cleveland.
Andorra, yes.
Yeah.
And the U.S. just took a large contingent of military equipment out and military personnel.
Yes, they did.
Oh my gosh, Michael, seriously? You think?
I think at some point, yes.
Okay.
Because the goal of this whole Middle East agenda is to seize control, not necessarily of the oil itself, but what currency the oil is being traded for.
Oh my gosh.
And if you will look at these countries like Iraq that wanted to sell their oil for currencies other than the US dollar, same thing with Libya.
Yeah.
Okay. And Saudi Arabia has been straining at the petrodollar deal because the dollar just isn't what it used to be.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So you think that Saudi Arabia is in for a little surprise in the not too distant future?
At some point, yes.
Whoa. Before the election?
No, I don't think it's before the election. They're just starting the propaganda run up.
Oh boy. So now Saudi Arabia bad.
Now Saudi Arabia bad.
Okay. This is a very interesting turn of events.
Yes.
Very interesting. And it's even more interesting with a pivot against both Russia and China. I wonder what Russia and China might try to do to get the Saudis on their side. That would be a very interesting coup.
Well, I think
economically.
Yeah, economically.
Yeah.
Well, it's already happening. When Saudi Arabia does a lot of trade with China and with Russia.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do a lot of trade with the United States because we don't have anything to trade with anymore.
Yeah.
You know, we've lost our manufacturing. What we do make is junk.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway.
It's a very strange world out there today. Very strange indeed. Okay. And I would also like to go over to an article that I thought I need to tease it because of time. It has to do with being conditioned to live in a smart city and why the intelligent thing is to resist it.
Definitely.
And apparently this comes from Michael Krieger at Liberty Blitzkrieg, which is a blog we link to. Now, at the dead center of it all is a guy by the name of Eric Schmidt. And well before Americans understood the threat of COVID-19, Schmidt had been on an aggressive lobbying and PR campaign pushing precisely the Black Mirror vision of society that Como has just empowered to build.
Okay, well, we have to take a break for commercial.
Okay.
We're going to open up the phone lines at this point. We've already got a caller waiting on the line.
Yeah.
We will be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go to the phones to Kelly in Austin. Hello, Kelly. Thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind?
Hey there, this is for Dustin. I want to tell him that the people in Wisconsin who are now free to move about will develop herd immunity long before Dustin and his friends will ever emerge from their mother's basements. I want to call your attention to a book titled Flu by Gina Colada. It is titled Flu, the story of the great influenza pandemic of 1918 and the search for the virus that caused it. The author here, who was a science writer with the New York Times, was published in 1998. Points out that there were 3 waves of the 1918 influenza pandemic. The first was not so bad. The second one was absolutely terrible. The third dropped off. And what they found out was that people who had been exposed to the first wave of the flu did not develop, did not experience the dramatic or the fatality, the level of fatality of people who were exposed to it the second time around. And so the exposure to a variant of the flu, apparently even a less virulent variety of the flu, gives people the immunity that they need to get through this. And so you have people now who are running around claiming, well, we're going to have a second more virulent strain of the flu. Well, yeah, you will if you keep everybody locked up. In 1918, that wasn't the case. They didn't lock people up. And so I think we really have to call into question the wisdom of the people who are telling us, though, we need to stay locked up because the second round of this flu is going to be worse than the first. Well, if you expose them to the first round, maybe if there's a second round, it won't be as bad.
Makes sense. It makes sense to me.
Yeah. But I mean, I hear Dustin go off and on about urging people, well, you need to wear your mask, you need to stay inside, you need to listen to what your political leaders are telling you. BS. The Wisconsin Supreme Court got this right. People have got to be free to make their own decisions. And I think in this case in Wisconsin, you're going to find out that they will reach the level of herd immunity to be able to move about and go about their lives long before people who live in states like Michigan or New Jersey or California will ever reach. That's all I got to say.
All right. Well, thank you for the information there. We're going to switch over to Jim in Illinois. Hello, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael and Claire. You know, this afternoon I was listening to Donald Trump. It made me very uncomfortable when he introduced that four-star general and stated that the general and the military are going to be distributing the vaccine once it's available. That made me very uncomfortable. Why don't they use the military today to go to these meat producers and some of these farmers are throwing away good food and pass out the food to people who are starving right now?
That's a very, very good question.
Yeah.
You know, Michael, I agree with you. I think there's something up. You know, because I went to the store the other day, and the food prices have gone up at least by 5 or 10%.
Yes.
So, well, that's basically it. You guys have a nice weekend.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Sebastian in Sweden. Hello, Sebastian. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Sebastian, are you there? Okay.
Hello?
I guess. Hello, Sebastian.
Yeah, how are you doing? How is Claire doing?
Claire is doing quite well. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, okay. I was thinking about the fact that it's been a really cold spring here in Sweden, that the potato harvest won't be in for midsummer, the time when most people eat potatoes doing the festival here around June the 20th. This year, I think it's on.
Yes.
And then I was thinking about, I was pretty late listening to you, and I didn't hear the thing about we're talking about cats and corona.
Yes.
That, you mean cats get corona and they spread it to people, or?
No, the research showed that cats with coronavirus can pass it on to other cats, and it begged the question, could they pass it back to humans? Apparently, humans are able to give the COVID-19 virus to cats, and cats can pass it among themselves. They don't show any symptoms, which is going to make this thing very tricky, but they're wondering, will the cats pass it back to humans? Well, normally, and again emphasizing I'm not a doctor, when a pathogen jumps species, it can always be made to reinfect the original host species. So my presumption would be that, yes, cats that are carrying COVID-19 can give it to humans.
Okay, because I have 2 cats here in the country, but, they are, I'd rather get it from my cats than get it from a stranger on the street.
Well, I hope you don't get it at all.
If that comes, well, I hope not either, because I do have problems, heart problems and respiratory, and, I'm 72, so, I hope I don't get it, but we'll see. It remains to be seen that how Sweden's reacting to the, with this herd mentality, because immunity, because it's like they have 360 per million, and Czechoslovakia has only 28 per million, and they have to wear masks. The thing is, with masks, it's not the fact that you can, if everyone wears one, people who have the virus won't spread it as easily.
Yes.
That people don't. That's the thing. Either everyone should wear it or no one. That's what, that's the thing about wearing a mask. And the fact that 2 counties in Sweden, Sweden has 290 counties and about 21 states. And 2 counties, the people who work in the retirement homes have to wear masks. And there's only been 1 death. In every other county in Sweden, there's been hundreds of deaths in the retirement homes. And I'm so glad I don't have to live in a retirement home in this country.
Yes.
But they're making way for the immigrants, and more immigration that's going to come in the end of the year, supposedly from Turkey. So Sweden is, they just opened their borders up, unlike most countries in Europe. That right now they're thinking about the corona. But Sweden's still taking in immigrants. They're flying them in. So it's, it's not and they're not even testing them for the corona either. No quarantine, nothing. But it's just an influenza. I know that, but it's just, we'll see what happens. We just wait and see.
Okay. Well, again, I hope you don't get it.
Take care of yourself.
We certainly will. Thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Starfire in Pennsylvania. Hello, Starfire. Welcome to the show. What's on your name?
Hi, Mike.
Hi.
Miss
Hello.
I was calling about the standoffs in South Dakota and North Dakota in the Okalaka Sioux tribes in South Dakota have blocked and now the governor is trying to force the natives to let the people with the virus go through the land. And the Laramie Treaty says, no, it is our lands and we are not going to do it. And in North Dakota, they are trying to put the pipeline through the land of the Sioux too. And there are 90 tribes, different tribes like Cheyenne, Arapaho, 90 different tribes that are there now, standing all around the roads and everything to stop them from putting that pipeline through. And also in Pennsylvania today, we had another rally at the state capitol, and they're telling that Wolf, Governor Wolf, you better open up the state of Pennsylvania. We've had enough. They're going against him, the one senator, what's his name, Papa? Toomey is going against him and going to have him impeached. That's the latest from here. I just thought I'd let you guys know.
Well, thank you very much for that. And that puppy dog in the background, give it a nice ear scratch from me.
Oh, he's 14 years old. He's our baby.
Okay.
All
right,
okay,
well,
bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch to Bobby in Florida. Hello, Bobby. What's on your mind today?
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're on the air.
Okay, I always have trouble with that. Oh, I just want to tell you about a real funny video to get some humor going here to lighten things up. It's called I Wear My Mask When I Drive My Car. It's on YouTube. It's very funny. It's got Bill Gates in it. It's pretty funny. Everybody ought to check that out. And I was telling you, the price of meat's going up down here in Florida, too. I've been shooting a lot of squirrels and eating them. They taste pretty good.
Yes.
It's like chicken. Well, I ate them before. They're very good. Tasty little critter. I mean, they live out of a tree. They eat acorns. That's all I got to say. And to our friend in New Jersey, he should know that, they lie about numbers. They lie about everything. We talk about lies all the time. He should realize that he's being lied to about some of this stuff, I mean, I don't get about him. But anyway, love him anyway. Love the show. Talk to you later, Mike.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Al in Ohio. Hello, Al. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. There's a reason why we have to develop immunity amongst each other. And the social distancing is not helping.
No.
Do you remember the book, The War of the Worlds?
Yes.
How the aliens died?
Yes.
Yeah, the aliens did not have resistance to the pathogens we have. So they just died. So they didn't, they didn't have any resistance to what we have.
True. But now we have a pathogen that we don't have resistance to.
Well, I understand. Well, this is a simple example. Okay, thanks for your time, Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot. The phone lines are open now, 800-313-9443. And lovely Lady Claire, what is your next story?
Well, the next story concerns me very greatly. Apparently, bars and restaurants in certain areas of certain states are being allowed to reopen if they agree to snitch on their customers. Now, this comes to us from Mass Private. And a lot of people are looking forward to finally getting out of the house and maybe having a couple of drinks or a nice dinner at the local bar or restaurant. However, going out to your local bar or restaurant once the lockdown ends may come with a steep price. That's because 3 cities in Louisiana, Texas, and Missouri will only allow non-essential businesses to reopen if they agree to collect customers' personal information. According to NOLA Ready, the Department of Homeland Security and the City of New Orleans are creating a new normal by forcing bars and restaurants to collect customers' personal information. Oh, we know everyone is eager to reopen. It's not going back to normal. It's what we call the new normal. It will be the data and not the date that drives not only the decision, but the phased approach to reopening the city of New Orleans. Today, we are outlining what those guidelines will be for the city, said Mayor LaToya Cantrell. Now, Forbes.com is explaining that the new normal for restaurants and bars is for them to become governor snitches.
Government snitches.
Yes, government snitches. New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell announced business owners will be required to keep logs of the names and contact information of patrons who enter their establishments once the Big Easy reopens to help with contact tracing, a move that Cantrell called part of the new normal as New Orleans and Louisiana plan to roll back coronavirus restrictions this month. Now, there are a couple of different articles in NOLA.com revealing how DHS and the city of New Orleans plan to use the COVID-19 contact tracing as their excuse to record customers' personal information. And apparently, an article titled "Customer Logs Will Be Kept Under New Normal Amid Coronavirus in New Orleans" explains DHS's plans. And apparently their contact tracing doesn't just involve the government alone. Cantrell said Tuesday in a conference call, businesses will proactively track the names and contact information of patrons as part of the new normal, she said. So, COVID-19 has become the excuse to trade big data to all surveillance arms of all governments, local, federal, and state. And I've got to tell you, Mike, if this is what it takes to go out to eat again, I may never do it. If such a deal is extant also in Indiana, I haven't heard that it is.
No,
but if it is,
so far, so good here.
Yeah.
You know, I'm wondering why they just can't get the information from the credit card slips.
Yeah. So if the cost ratio benefit of going out to eat becomes too costly in terms of what I have coined info invasion, I'm just not going to do it.
Me neither.
Yeah, you know, I cook reasonably well, and I
can prove it right here.
And, you know, I can manage to do decent food and keep that on our plates. Now, this was a very interesting article. And apparently there was a secret U.S.-Iranian deal that installed Kadhimi in Baghdad. Now, the nomination of Mustafa al-Kadhimi as Iraqi prime minister was the result of a horse trade between the U.S. and Iran, in which Tehran agreed to back the former intelligence chief in return for an unfreezing of some of its assets targeted by sanctions. Now, the source is not named, but Middle East Eye is usually pretty spot on with this stuff. And apparently the U.S. policy of quote unquote exerting maximum pressure on Iran will not change. But the U.S. apparently has agreed to de-escalate militarily in the Gulf and to look the other way if a third-party European country released some of Iranian money frozen when the sanctions were applied. Now, as recently as 4 March, Kadhimi's candidacy for the premiership was called a declaration of war on the Iraqi people by the top commander of the pro-Iranian Kataib Hezbollah militia, Abu Ali al-Askari. Askari was accusing this guy of involvement in the U.S. drone strikes in January, which assassinated top Iranian General Qasem Soleimani and influential militia leader Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis, a charge explicitly denied by Iraq's intelligence service. And apparently, Iraq is voting in their new government now, ending a 6-month vacancy. Mike, your thoughts?
Well, it does sound like there's a lot in play with Iraq. This looking the other way when Iran is unfreezing assets in the European countries. I think it's a good sign. Anyway, we have to take a break for commercials, and we'll be back with the last segment of our program after these few words. Welcome back to our show here, last segment of our program on this Pauhana Friday. And Claire, you have one more story for us.
Oh, yes, I do.
Oh, good.
When someone in government just blurts out what they really want to do, what they're really going to do if they possibly can, and we had that happen very recently with the U.S. anti-ISIS chief who made the statement that his goal in Syria is to create a quagmire for Russia not battle terrorism. Now, the guy's name is James Jeffrey, the U.S. Special Envoy for Syria and defeating the Islamic State. And he made a very candid confession of how he sees his job and that job of American troops there to create a new Vietnam or Afghanistan for Moscow.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I don't know. Vietnam worked out pretty well for Moscow.
Oh, I shouldn't laugh, Mike. The hard part is stopping. Let me compose myself. And he made the statement.
You composer, you.
Yeah, I know. Our military presence, while small, is important for overall calculations. So we urge the Congress, the American people, the president, to keep these forces on. But again, this isn't Afghanistan, this isn't Vietnam, and this isn't a quagmire, Jeffrey said on Tuesday during a video event hosted by the Hudson Institute. And he made the statement, "My job is to make it a quagmire for the Russians." Flipping seriously, Michael? What is this man thinking? And I have to ask, what metric is Jeffrey pointing to since the U.S. occupation of oil-rich Syria areas? How is this helping make a quagmire for the Russians? Can you please explain this to me? Because I'm gobsmacked. My answer is zero, zip, none.
And you need to go back and remember how much Afghanistan cost the United States.
Oh, yeah.
And, in terms of, well, money, outright money.
And blood.
Charlie
Let's
Wilson's
not forget
war.
that. Yeah. So I'm rather gobsmacked and amazed and a little confused by his statement there. Oh, and one little thing about Israel that I wanted to share before the very end of our show. Apparently, the coalition swearing-in has been pushed to Sunday as spurned Likud MKs, or members of the Knesset, turn on Netanyahu. And apparently, there has been a mini rebellion as the prime minister is struggling to divvy out limited numbers of portfolios to senior lawmakers in his own party. And Gantz found out about the request for delay from the media. Now, Mike, forgive me, but if they're supposed to be co-governing Israel, is this not just a teeny tiny bit cold?
Yes, it absolutely
Whoa.
is. Now, the reason for the delay is because Mike Pompeo is there.
Yeah.
Doing what Mike Pompeo does here.
Yes.
But it looks like Gantz went along with it. But you're right. Netanyahu is still acting like he's the sole person in charge. Now, as I understand it, Netanyahu is going to serve as prime minister for the first half of the term in office.
Right.
Then
And then
Gantz will take over, assuming he's still alive.
Okay.
Okay.
Apparently, though, a number of Likud MKs.
There's our music.
There's our music.
It's time for us to get on out of here thank goodness it's Friday here. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of RBN. Call your local talk radio station and have them carry our programming. Please spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. I cannot tell you how much we depend on you to keep doing what we're doing. We'll be back on Monday. Aloha, America.